Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bills Guys vidcast presented by the Buffalo Fanatics. I think I already said that. I'm losing my mind. I'm mostly just afraid right now because we're supposed to put a graphic up to start every show, and I forgot to do that. So my fear right now is the wrath of Pierre. But we will get to that in a moment. I will overcome my fears, and I'll introduce you, Dave Tilton, my co-host, as always. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And we have the comments section, which, ladies and gentlemen, Bill's Guys record for comments before the show even begins. Yeah. I think we're at 30 comments before the show even began. So we want to thank you guys. Mike Solo's in here, Elliot's in here, Cody Finney's in here. A lot of guys who we normally see are in here. Corey Buffalo's now in the house.
Steven's in
the house. All right. So we appreciate it, gentlemen. And
F the Jets. We can't forget them.
A couple of Heather's back again. Thank you. So one thing that we want to start off the show with today is the fact that I am the big winner of this podcast. A lot of you might not have been around draft season when I was the biggest Utah fan. I literally said on one podcast, I would trade all of our draft picks for the right to every Utah player in the draft because I love Zach Moss. I love the quarterback, Tyler Huntley. I loved everything they had going on the defensive side of the ball. I love me some Utah prospects. And me and Dave had a wager going that if the Buffalo Bills selected a Utah player, he would buy me a nice Utah polo. So I am rocking – oh, the camera's backwards. I am rocking my Utah polo tonight.
I'm going with my Bills polo. Oh, yep, backwards. to match. We got a little red and blue action here, so it's pretty good.
All right. So you know what I like about that? That's not like Bills blue. That's like corporate blue.
Yeah.
That's like something you'd wear underneath a tan suit.
Well, it is actually it's very comfortable, and it's nice to play golf in this shirt in the summer because it's a lighter color. You don't get as hot. So I thought it was a little different, so I liked it and I went for it. And this is only the second time I've worn this shirt for the show. The only other time was for the Reed Ferguson interview. So it's a special occasion now that you got your Utah Utes winning shirt, and it's got to feel better wearing that when it was free and you won it. So congrats.
Speaking of golf shirts, I hit the links today. I shot my first round over 100 all season. Did not have myself a great day today.
Game's really rounded into form there.
Got the wife of Matt Milano jersey. I like that, Cody. That's awesome. I think that's going to be an underrated jersey for Bills Mafia, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous to buy a Matt Milano jersey right now because who knows how much longer Matt Milano's going to be in Buffalo.
Get whatever jersey you want. You should see the wall of shame jerseys I have hanging up in my sports room right now. Quick plug to Jim Ruther on Twitter. If you don't know who he is, he sells a ton of Bills memorabilia and signed jerseys, and I'm gradually replacing my wall of shame jerseys of Bills of past with some nice new signed jerseys from stalwarts. So the wall of shame has the likes of CJ Spiller, Paul Puslesny, Lee Evans is not a wall of shame. I like my Lee Evans jersey, and so replacing those with some nice ones with Kyle Williams, Fred Jackson, the likes of that. So get any jersey you want. Don't feel bad about it. That's what I say.
Yeah, Andrew Miller commented, I have a James Hardy jersey. People can't beat that. I have a George Wilson.
But the thing is, George Wilson was such a fan favorite that no one's going to give you any crap for that one. I mean, he is one of the most famous Monday night plays in Bills history when he returned that touchdown against Tony Romo.
Funny story with George Wilson. So I was at training camp. Oh God, what year was that Monday Night Football game? What? Because I'm trying to figure out how old I was.
2007, I think it was.
Okay, so I was like 18 years old, like high school senior, and I had a George Wilson jersey. And I showed up to training camp one of the years that George Wilson was a Buffalo Bill. So I was sort of an adult, probably like of legal age, 18 or up. And I'm rocking my George Wilson jersey to training camp, and I'm trying to get his autograph on the jersey. I eventually got his autograph. I was expecting George Wilson to sort of be excited, oh man, fans got my jersey. he was like weird. He was like creeped out by the fact that there was like this 18-year-old kid with this jersey on. I was like, dude, what? He was like creeped out by it. I was like, come on, I'm not that creepy. I didn't have a mullet back then either, so I couldn't have been that creepy.
You know, he's probably like, why would anyone want? He's probably like, why does this kid want my jersey? He probably doesn't even know who I am. But you knew who he was, and maybe he was just taken aback that someone really wanted his autograph, man. I mean, George Wilson was a fan favorite, so.
A couple of things. Mike Solo says, wish Big Ditch would sponsor the Ralph. Love them Haybeners. Big fan of Big Ditch. My opinion, way better than Resurgence. No offense to Resurgence. But in my opinion, Big Ditch is the better of the two breweries. I just don't know if Big Ditch has that kind of cash. And then let's start the day off here with some hot takes. Cody Finney starting us off with the hottest of hot takes. Matt Milano will be re-signed before week 1 of the regular season.
Wow.
That's a sizzling take right there. If I've ever seen one, especially with all the COVID and all the things that people are talking about right now and all the issues that are sort of surrounding the NFL. If the Bills were to work out a contract restructure or a contract extension with Matt Milano, while all this stuff is going on, that would be something. Pierre says the mullet is creeping people out. That's why I'm wearing the big headphones now. It hides the mullet. You can't really see the mullet behind these headphones. For those of you who don't know, I'm pretty big on the whole quarantine thing. Like, I've talked such a big game at this point that if I go out, like leave my house to get a haircut, which is essentially a non-essential thing, that I would be a huge hypocrite and be publicly shamed. So I have to just keep letting this hair grow because the only places I go are hiking, golfing, in the grocery store, and to work whenever they ask me to work. So that's all I really do at this point. I'm a hermit. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I live in Phoenix, Arizona. It's 120 degrees out, but that's beside the point. All right. We had the hot take. We had the hot take from Cody, and that's where I want to start our show today. And our first topic that I want to talk to you guys about is sleeper impact players. A player that maybe we're not talking about going into the season, that by the end of the season, we could be like, wow, that's the player that put us over the top. Or, wow, I can't believe that player contributed so much to the team this year. It doesn't have to be a Pro Bowl season, but who's a guy who could come out of nowhere and do something this season and really make an impact on this squad that none of us are talking about right now? So what I want you guys to do while we are sharing our impact players is I want you to hit up the comment section and let us know what you think and why, and we will read through what you have to say. And if you disagree with what we have to say, tell us exactly why we are wrong in the comment section as well. So, Dave, I'm going to start with you. Who's one sleeper impact player you think that we're going to be raving about by the end of the season?
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? I thought about this question before the show, and I really wanted to go deep with this one, like deep in the bag of sleepers here, because it's a lot easier. I feel like, we talk about this in the context of fantasy. You think about sleepers or guys that you pick like super late that end up being like, huge guys for your fantasy team. Like I'm talking like last round or second to last round. I'm not talking about like, quote, breakout guys who are, known to be good, have a reputation, or maybe have like some expectation and then actually do break out and perform, right? So like people like Dawson Knox are not sleepers to me. People like that, like they're not sleepers. So I'm going to go really deep here, really deep. And people are probably going to be like, why are you saying this guy? But I really think he could have an impact potentially in 2 phases of the game here. I'm going to say Tyler Matakevich could be a super deep sleeper for this team. And the reason I say that is because the Bills were willing to sign Matakevich without having any familiarity with him. But you heard about how Beane talked about him in that press conference and said he busted his ass on special teams and he kicks ass and all this. And so special teams, you're going to see this guy be making a lot of tackles. He's going to probably be the first guy to the ball on a lot of these punts and kickoffs. And depending how things shake out with AJ Klein at that strong side, and or if, God forbid, something happens to Matt Milano, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Tyler Matakevich maybe sneak in there on defense and get some run at some point this season. So I know I'm going deep here, but the point of this was to talk about a sleeper that no one's thinking about who could make an impact on this team. And special teams, man, he's a chance to be a star gunner potentially, or a star tackler on special teams. So I'm going out on a limb and going deep and saying Tyler Matakevich could be a deep sleeper.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because you think about it, our special teams, since Danny Crossman has been with the Buffalo Bills, it's been, wow, this special teams is atrocious. This special teams is so bad. So Tyler Matakevich, even if he doesn't play defense, and there are some preseason highlights from his time in Pittsburgh where he gets to the quarterback a little bit in preseason. So maybe he can be utilized as a blitzer, but even if it's just a special teams only contribution, if he makes some big plays on special teams this year, makes some big tackles, pins some touchbacks deep, forces a fumble or two, makes one of those big plays or two, that's a guy we're going to be like, man, this special teams has been bad for a really long time. Yeah. This is a guy who came in, set the tone, and turned things around because, Lorenzo Alexander, I don't know what it was because he was supposedly the special teams dynamo his whole career, and he was still very good on special teams. But how many times last year was Lorenzo Alexander tagged with a penalty? Towards the later end of his career, it seems like he was maybe being stretched a little too thin. So maybe this nice breath of youth and fresh air on the special teams unit could be exactly what we need. Corey Buffalo says, fun fact, George Wilson was the love interest of Marsha Ambrosius's video, Late Nights and Early Mornings, and a nice super chat there from Corey. We appreciate it. I assume that's a singer, and I assume that that's a music video. George Wilson's a very good-looking man, so it wouldn't surprise me if he was anyone's love interest in any video. But, yeah, fun fact, I had no idea that he was a star of film and or music video fame. I'll have to look that up. All right. A couple people in the comments section. Brian Adams chimed in. Duke, because he's got some big battles to fight. Another person chimed in with Gabe Davis. I'm about to make some people upset because my pick for the sleeper impact player for the Buffalo Bills this season and my hot take is my player is Isaiah Hodgins, and I am going to say that he has a bigger rookie season than the guy drafted ahead of him at the same position, Gabriel Davis. And the reason why I say this is because I'm going to pull it up on my phone right now. Isaiah Hodgins has some absolutely filthy statistics in the red zone in college. And if you think about the wide receiver position, I mean, look at the wide receiver depth chart right now. Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley. It's stacked 1, 2, 3. And if you look at Gabriel Davis and Gabriel Davis's game, I don't see a way for Gabriel Davis to get onto the football field in year one. I really don't. It's not going to surprise me if Gabriel Davis is inactive for a majority of the football games this season. And here's why. He's sort of a one-trick pony at wide receiver right now, and his one trick is going vertical. And we have John Brown, and we have Stephon Diggs. So unless one of those two guys gets hurt, Gabe Davis has been primarily a boundary, deep down the field receiver. He's got to work on his short and underneath routes. He's got to work on the finesse of route running and all the nuances that go along with being a wide receiver. In my opinion, Gabriel Davis is a 2-year project who the Buffalo Bills see as someone who's going to step in for John Brown when John Brown's contract expires. I do not think, and we'll get to your comment in a second, Cody, we appreciate it. I do not think that Gabriel Davis is going to have a big year one impact. Now, we mentioned those three receivers, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley. They're missing something. Like Stephon Diggs is above 6 feet, but he's not the biggest wide receiver in the world. So Isaiah Hodgins has something going for him that no other receiver other than Duke Williams on this depth chart has. And as much as I love Duke Williams, as much as I love the underdog story, as much as I love the way he grinds in the videos he's posting himself this offseason, I'll tell you right now, Isaiah Hodgins was taken in the 6th round. He would have been a 3rd or a 4th rounder. He would have been taken right around the same time as Gabriel Davis if there was an actual pre-draft process this year, if teams actually got to go and see him work out and go through the visits and things of that nature. These are Isaiah Hodgins' statistics in the red zone in college. He was throwing the ball 22 times in his college career in the red zone. He caught 21 of them. Of those 21 catches, 16 of them were touchdowns, and he only dropped 3 balls his entire career. We saw Josh Allen start to make those contested catch throws in the Houston playoff game. When we get into the red zone this season, Isaiah Hodgins can be a weapon. He can use his size. He can use that ability in the red zone to his advantage to work his way onto the football field. I think if the Buffalo Bills keep 7 wide receivers, you're going to see something like McKenzie and Hodgins be those niche guys that you shuffle in. whether it's making one guy inactive every week because you're playing matchups, or you play them both and you throw them out in the field differently, whatever the case, I really think that Isaiah Hodgins has a chance to be a guy who he could surprise some people and score 5-6 touchdowns this year just because of his ability to play in the red zone.
Yeah, and I mean, we both said, and I remember specifically saying right after the draft, and we had our draft show, that's like I kind of liked Hodgins more than Davis anyway, as a complete route, more of a complete route runner coming out. Cody's dropping a kind of a big bomb here with the super chat and the take here. So thank you, Cody, for the super chat. This is a guy that you liked, Steve. He says future sleeper Trey Adams. Beane will choose Milano over Dawkins, and Adams steps up as a star left tackle. Don't forget, was viewed as a top 10 pick 2 years ago. I know you were big on Adams as far as being a guy late in the draft. We had him going in so many of our mocks that you and I did back and forth, either as like a late rounder or undrafted, and ended up being undrafted. So, thoughts on this take here from Cody with Trey Adams?
I like the take if the question was future impact starter, not like impact, like surprise impact player in 2020. Because the key word here is 2020. In a COVID shortened off season, I don't see any shot of a UDFA getting on the football field, much less they're planning Deion Dawkins. So this is something, Cody, where if Deion Dawkins gets let go, or if Cody, or not if he gets let go, but if we don't sign him to an extension, or if Cody Ford washes out at right tackle, I said in the pre-draft process, the Buffalo Bills need to take a high ceiling offensive lineman. And that's what Trey Adams is. He has a very, very high ceiling. I like Cameron Clark from Charlotte. I liked Alex Taylor from South Carolina State. I love those high ceiling sort of raw prospects. Trey Adams is a little more refined than that. And the reason why I said the Buffalo Bills had that luxury is because we're so deep on the offensive line. The fact that this guy is going to get buried is actually an advantage to Trey Adams. He can come into these world-class facilities in Buffalo. He can rehab. He can work with NFL trainers. He can get his body right. He doesn't have to be rushed in right away. He can rehab those knees that sort of derailed his career. He can get his body right. He's not going to be expected to play for 2-3 years. Like, legitimately, we can redshirt him this year. He can be inactive every week. He can be our 8th or 9th offensive lineman. Save him so we don't have to risk him to waivers, so he might not get to the practice squad. Make him your Ike Butker. Make him your Ryan Bates, that guy who sits on the bench and wears a sweatsuit every week. You have that luxury if you're the Buffalo Bills. Not every team in the National Football League has the luxury to straight up redshirt a player. The Buffalo Bills have that luxury on the offensive line. That's why I wanted them to draft a lineman. I was upset when they didn't, but then I was really happy when they picked up Adams and when they picked up Wilson from FAU, because he's got some upside as well. So I'm totally with you, Cody, just not in 2020.
Well, here's one that could be 2020, right? And it's not, I wouldn't say it's a sleeper, but maybe the sleeper aspect here is a sleeper of Tyler Bass actually winning the competition. Like, from the comments that we've seen over the last several weeks in the show, there's like there's a big Tyler Bass contingent in our viewership, and there's still some Stephen Hauschka support out there, but you would have to think, all things equal, going into this with the shortened off season, potentially no preseason, potentially an abbreviated camp, that has to work against Tyler Bass, I would think. So, but the sleeper aspect of this, of Tyler Bass potentially winning this job, probably becomes a little bit more improbable. And this is maybe even a better reason to say him right here as a potential sleeper, is because he's not going to have those opportunities in preseason where there's not a ton of pressure on the line, and he's going to have to show this purely in practice and in whatever camp you do have. So Tyler Bass as a sleeper to contribute this year. And obviously if he does win out the job, then it's his job for the foreseeable future, and he's going to contribute. So, field goal kicking, we said, Stephen Hauschka made 22 field goals last year. So we'll see. I think this could be an interesting one. Andrew, just to put some water on your flames there, said, also was really good in college, had a tremendous stats, Zay Jones. So, yeah.
No comment. But Cody had a comment, and someone else had a comment too, and I meant to throw theirs up, but I sort of got lost in the shuffle there. He says, I want to see more empty sets this year. Here's the issue I have, and one of the things that I talk a lot about, is I absolutely love the way the Cleveland Browns utilized Baker Mayfield the second half of his rookie season. They protected him with 2 tight ends. They did a lot of play action, a lot of things. Trips wide receivers on one side. There wasn't a lot of spread. And then you saw last year they tried to go air raid in Cleveland, and there wasn't the greatest of results. I don't want to put too much pressure on Josh Allen. Just because Josh Allen has all these weapons doesn't mean that we now have to spread the ball out and pretend like we're playing Madden. We don't have to become an air raid offense. We can still throw the ball a lot within the confines of things that Josh Allen is comfortable with. Don't get me wrong. You've seen Brian Daboll do it before. He went 5 wide receivers a lot last year, but he always brought one guy back into the backfield, or he had Patrick DeMarco spread out. That was it helps Josh Allen read the defense. It's very tough to read the defense when you're spread out 5 wide receivers. Do I want to see it? Yes, but I don't want it to be a staple. I don't want it to be air raid. Like, I don't need air raid Allen 24/7. I think there needs to be a balance. I think I still want to see a lot of 12 personnel. I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Tyler Kroft on the field a good amount. I wouldn't mind seeing 3 wide receiver sets with 1 running back and a tight end. That's another type of set that I like, 11 personnel. I don't really want to see too much of 4 or 5 wide receiver sets because I just don't know how much of Josh Allen's game that is yet. Maybe as the season goes on, he grows more confident. But, when your quarterback, completes pass, say what you want. When your quarterback completes passes at a 50 to 60% clip, making passing the only option unless the quarterback scrambled sometimes isn't the wisest of choices. So I wouldn't mind. I want them to throw the ball more. I want them to be effective throwing the ball, but I don't know if I exactly want to see them spread out.
Yeah, and here's N. Smith. Thanks for the comment here. Appreciate you watching the last few shows. I know you've been a regular. Robert Foster will break out. So this is more of like, I guess what they would call a quote post-hype sleeper, right? This is one of those where like he had that nice kind of coming on at the end of 2018, and then 2019 kind of disappeared, right? So is there a chance that he is a sleeper for the Bills this year, that because no one's talking about him? Robert Foster is going to break out. Cool. For which team?
This is the answer right here, in my opinion. I mean,
another team.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say as I crack open my second beer of the evening. But here's what I'm going to say about Robert Foster. Sean McDermott.
What's up, Joshua?
If he comes into camp and he earns it, he earns it. But right now, I think what Robert Foster is going to have to do when he comes into campus, he's going to have to still be spectacular on special teams. He's going to have to probably be able to replicate what Isaiah McKenzie does on jet sweeps. And he's probably going to have to compete and go toe-to-toe with Gabe Davis as a downfield wide receiver. So, like, this wide receiver class is so deep. And, I mean, at the end of the day, he was a UDFA 3 years ago. It's not like he was a 4th-round pick 3 years ago. So the Buffalo Bills brought him in here as a flyer, and it sort of clicked for 5 or 6 games in his rookie season. It sort of lost its luster last year. The Bills lost their faith in Robert Foster. I'm not saying Robert Foster doesn't have a place in the National Football League. I just don't know if he has a place in Buffalo. Look at I make this joke all the time. Look at the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have Devin Funchess, Devontae Adams, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Jake Crummerow,
Alan
Lazard. There ain't a lot of speed in that group.
Quimius St. Brown or whatever his name is.
There ain't a lot of speed in Green Bay. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of August, I can't pronounce the name of the GM in Green Bay, Brian Gutenhurtenkurst, calls up Brandon Beane and says, hey, that Robert Foster guy who can run really fast on the field and also contribute on special teams, maybe run a jet sweep here or there, like, you want a 7th-round pick for him? That's something that wouldn't surprise me. I like Robert Foster. I really do. But I'd rather have Isaiah McKenzie as the gadget guy. I'd rather just let Tywan Jones be the gunner so we can keep the extra big guy in Isaiah McKenzie. He ain't going to unseat Gabe Davis, who we used a 4th-round capital on. So don't mistake this as me dissing Robert Foster. I love Robert Foster. I just don't love him in Buffalo. I just don't see an opportunity for him.
There's been a couple comments, and I want to get to this guy because he was the guy that was on my list too. There's been a few people going back and forth on Kroft, and I want to get to Kroft because a lot there's been some who say Kroft could be cut as a hot take, but I actually think Kroft, is a guy that the coaching staff, assuming he's healthy, is going to value this year. I mean, they restructured his deal to give him like this kind of one more chance. And look, when he was playing last year, he actually was playing pretty well. I mean, he was injured, we know, at the beginning of camp, and he kind of got slow moved along slowly to get back into the lineup. But he did have some nice moments. He had that nice catch, I believe, against the Ravens, and then he had the nice game-winning touchdown catch, technically, against the Steelers, right? So outside of Dawson Knox, Kroft probably is the best receiving option we have at tight end, unless you go into the depths of the room there to the Jason Kroom level, which I certainly would prefer to have Tyler Kroft on the field. So I like Kroft as a potential option here in the two tight ends, and we talked about this too. Like Dawson Knox and Kroft on the field at the same time gives you options. So Kroft, I think, is a guy that maybe people aren't talking about much, just because statistically he didn't do much last year, but how much of that was to the injury? He was pretty good when he was playing behind Eifert, so in Cincinnati. So I like this one right here from Jay.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Kroft has had glimpses of success in the National Football League. There's a reason why the Bills gave him the payday they did in free agency a couple of years ago. And I know that people get overpaid in free agency, but he's shown some glimpses of potential. I really like that Scott Chandler comp because it's sort of like a tall, lanky receiver, can sort of just get open for first downs, safety blanket type of tight end. I'd say mediocre would be the word to describe them as a blocker. Maybe not quite average, definitely not above average, but also not the worst in the world. So all of those things, I think that's a great comp for Tyler Kroft. And here's one of the reasons. I explained earlier how I don't want to see the Buffalo Bills spread out and go too crazy with their weapons. And one of the things I would like to see is a lot of 12 personnel with Tyler Kroft on one side, Dawson Knox on the other, and and Zach Moss in the backfield. Not Devin Singletary, but Zach Moss. And here's my reasoning. If you have Stephon Diggs on one side of the defense and you have John Brown on the other side of the defense, two speedsters who are going to get down the field, they're going to make the safeties think, the linebackers are going to drop, the corners are going to play off. There's going to be a lot of thought given to those two receivers as they run deep down the field, Stephon Diggs and John Brown. You have guys like Dawson Knox and Tyler Kroft who can work the ball, over the middle. So you can easily pass out of this set because Diggs and Brown can get themselves open. Kroft and Knox can find space, over the middle of the field. You can hit wide receivers and you can pass the ball out of this formation. But at the other end of the spectrum, if the defense decides they're going to respect the pass and they drop everyone back, what Zach Moss is saying in college, I'm going to make people make business decisions. So those safeties are dropping back because of Diggs and because of Brown, and they're respecting the passing game despite the fact that we have two tight ends in there. Josh Allen just needs to call a little audible, hand the ball to Zach Moss, who will easily get to the second level. Then he'll make some linebackers and some safeties make some business decisions. And we can play action out of it, go down the field to Stephon Diggs, John Brown. We can still easily pass the ball in that formation. That's one of the reasons why I want to see 12 personnel. Josh Allen does really well out of play action. It was his go-to in college. It's something he did pretty well in his rookie season. Josh Allen is pretty good quarterback out of play action. Get him more situations with two tight ends where he could run the play action. He could still find those safety blankets over the middle. He's got two capable wide receivers on the boundaries this year that can still get open, despite the fact that there aren't five wide receivers on the field.
Former Bills offensive line coach here, Juan Castillo. EJ Gaines has been mentioned a couple times in the comments. So let's talk about EJ Gaines a little bit as a sleeper. Is this the year EJ Gaines does stay healthy and actually contributes maybe in that Kevin Johnson type of role that from last year where, KJ got some play starting the second half of the year. McDermott used him a lot more. Could EJ Gaines maybe fill that type of role? And while we're talking about EJ Gaines, a lot of people have been talking about Josh Norman in the comments section as well. So not necessarily thinking Josh Norman's a sleeper because of the money we gave him, but is EJ Gaines a sleeper?
I would say so, but I don't think it's because the Bills coaching staff thinks he's a sleeper. I think that, I made this comment numerous times on this show. Sean McDermott was talking to the media. He was making excuses for Josh Norman. The Bills, with their wallets, with their paychecks, have shown that Josh Norman is their guy. You still have Levi Wallace here. Sean McDermott said in that same press conference where he was touting Josh Norman that EJ called us. EJ asked us to come back. He said he was healthy. So EJ sort of came crawling back to the Bills. So I think EJ is a really good player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to have every opportunity to contribute, but he's going to have to earn it over two guys I think the Bills probably respect more in Levi Wallace and Josh Norman. Now, in a COVID-stricken offseason, guys can test positive for COVID. A spot can open up for EJ Gaines. Injuries can happen. If EJ Gaines can stay healthy, other guys in front of him go down, EJ Gaines could step in and once again be a quality cornerback in the National Football League.
Mhm.
Like, how awesome is it that our number 4 cornerback is a guy who can easily, probably, if healthy, be a number 2 quarterback in the National Football League? The Bills literally have 3 guys on their roster right now who are average to mediocre number CB2s. And everyone's all concerned. They're like, oh, CB2, CB2, CB2. I'm so worried about it. We literally have 3 guys. Sean McDermott is known for coaching defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
If Josh Norman sucks, Levi Wallace, you're up. If Levi Wallace sucks, EJ Gaines, you're up. Don't tell me Sean McDermott's not going to make one of them work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just at this point, with the way Sean McDermott coaches DBs and the fact that we have quantity of average players there, one of them will figure it out. One of them will.
Yeah, and let's not forget about Dane Jackson. Now, it's the off-season situation is going to hurt him. Again, the no preseason is not going to be in his favor, but the Bills invested a draft pick in him as well as a guy that maybe competes with Teron Johnson in the nickel. We'll see. But he's another guy that I liked when we drafted him. So
yeah, the one thing I'll say about Dane Jackson is he's more physical. He reminds me of Levi Wallace in stature, but he plays different than Levi Wallace. He's more physical. He can play inside outside because of that physicality. He's still a little stiff in the hips. He's going to get beat downfield by some of the better speed receivers in the National Football League. But this guy's a very aggressive corner. He can play man. He can play zone. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's very versatile. He's another guy like Isaiah Hodgins, where if there was a pre-draft process, you ain't touching this guy in the 7th round. He's a 4th, 5th rounder. So that begs the question, do the Buffalo Bills think this guy's practice squad material, or is he going to make a run for the 53-man roster? And if he does make the 53-man roster, chances are Levi Wallace has been traded for a draft pick, or EJ Gaines has been cut. One of those 2 things.
Yeah, and so Jake mentions here, do we not believe Levi Wallace deserves CB2 because he's been in the system, has performed well? I don't think no one he doesn't deserve the spot. Trey White
doesn't deserve to be the number 1 corner if he comes into training camp and half-asses it, and Josh Norman and Levi Wallace are better. No one deserves anything. That's what I love about Sean McDermott. Like, no one deserves anything. And I think when he says it, he legitimately means it. Like, if Josh Allen came into training camp this year, 30 pounds overweight, and Jamarcus Russelled it, you saw when this offense stagnated under Tyrod Taylor, Sean McDermott, despite the fact that it blew up in his face, wasn't afraid to make that tough decision and see if the grass was greener on the other side in Nathan Peterman. But the grass wasn't greener on their side. It was quite brown. It was quite dead. So they had to go back to Tyrod Taylor. So I really do think that Sean McDermott really does believe in that best man up philosophy. So we got a question here from Jimmy Johnson. Harrison Phillips might be a huge sleeper. If we lose Oliver or Lodolele, he might have a chance to step up. We can finally see what he's made of. We touched on Harrison Phillips a little bit last show. What are your thoughts on Harrison Phillips here?
Yeah, we had the Under the Radar storyline show, and we were talking about Harrison Phillips as a guy that was on the ascent before he got injured last year. And the one thing you worry about with this situation here is how deep we are along the defensive line now, especially on the interior. You've got Ed's there, you got Starr. Obviously, they're going to be your 2 kind of main guys, but then you brought in Quentin Jefferson, who could slide in the inside. You brought in Vernon Butler, who's a former first-round pick. You have Harrison Phillips coming back from injury. You still have Vincent Taylor. So there's a lot of competition now at this position, which I think is great for the unit as a whole. And Harrison coming back from injury doesn't have to feel, he's going to put pressure on himself because he's going to want to show that he can still be the guy. And he's probably going to make the team. But, what a luxury to have if he comes back to the form that he was kind of trending towards the first part of last season before he got hurt. So I like Harrison. He was a guy I mentioned as an under the radar storyline this year. So I like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think War Code Red 01 hits it right on the dot here. He says, they rotate a lot on the D line, so he's bound to get some reps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Sean McDermott really likes it. One of the things that I mentioned was that I'd like to see a little bit less of a rotation on the defensive line, because if a player like Ed Oliver is ready to bust out in year 2, I don't want to see that guy contained. Like, remember when Chan Gailey was here back with Fred Jackson and CJ Spiller? He refused to play the running back who was on the hot streak. Like, CJ Spiller would bust off a 60-yard run, and he would put Fred Jackson in. Or Fred Jackson would bust out would have like 40 yards and a touchdown on a drive. And the next drive, CJ Spiller would be in. And they'd ask Chan Gailey after the game, like, man, Fred Jackson had a great drive. Why'd you put CJ in? Well, it was CJ's turn. That's not what I like. So if Ed Oliver decides it's time to bust out this year, I'm not saying don't rotate, but instead of what we saw last year, which was essentially like 25, 25, 25, 25, or once Harrison Phillips got hurt, like, 30, 30, 30, 10, I would like to see Ed Oliver get 50% of the snaps, because I think he could be super effective in those 50% of the snaps. On pass rushing downs, a guy that I don't think we mentioned earlier, but we were thinking about highlighting in the sleeper impact players. 2 of the top 10 players, analytically speaking, interior pass rushers last year in the National Football League. Ed Oliver was one of them. One of the other ones at the top 5 was Quentin Jefferson.
Yeah. F the Jets mentioned Quentin Jefferson, so quick shout out to him. Did mention him. Yep.
Dude, get me a third and 14 with Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, Quentin Jefferson, and Ed Oliver. Just those 4 dudes chasing the quarterback. Drop everyone else back into coverage. Maybe surprise with a Siraniel blitz or something like that. But, I mean, come on. Yeah. Those guys are going to wreak havoc. They're going to wreak absolute havoc. And you throw AJ Epinesa in there too, Vernon Butler. I mean, the depth of – there's no studs outside of maybe Ed Oliver. And maybe you can make the case for Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes, but they're aging. Like, there are no, like, Aaron Donalds on this defensive line. They're not. Maybe Ed Oliver can turn into something of that quality someday. But there just aren't right now. But there's a lot of really good players in this defense, and they're going to be well rested and ready to get at people because of that rotation. But if one player is rising above the rest, I want to see that player get a more percentage of the snaps than just like that 25.
And I have to go back to a comment you made earlier, because I'm going to have to agree with Frank here. Trey White's not going to be.
Okay, guys, we need to understand hyperbole, guys. I was using that as an example. I was trying to make a point. I also believe I said if Josh Allen showed up to training camp with a Jamarcus Russell potbelly at some point in my hyperbolic rant there. So I do apologize. Trey White, I'm sorry.
Know. It was more for comic effect there, but yes, I think everyone gets it. It was more of just the culture highlight there.
We got Pierre said it's going to take Harrison more than a year to get fully back healthy. One of the things I said is that I wouldn't even be surprised if we get to training camp and he's put on the PUP list. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Harrison Phillips until November, December. Yeah. Who knows? Like that's a guy who I really could see the Buffalo Bills maybe trying to sit on, because Brandon Beane didn't seem too peachy about on him in the 1 or 2 comments he's made about him this offseason. Didn't sound too peachy. Didn't sound
too peachy. But the one thing working in his favor is the injury did happen early in the season. I think it was the 3rd game against the Bengals is when it happened. So he's had almost the full regular season plus to get over it, and now coming back. So if they do PUP him, then. And who knows, the PUP rules may change this year. We've heard rumblings about that potentially changing as well. So that could give him that extra time he needs, like they did with Kroft. So yes, I agree with that.
Chris Janicki here. Do you think the coaching staff could keep Daryl Johnson over Trent Murphy for some youth on the edge? I remember last preseason, Daryl Johnson was so good we couldn't put him on the practice squad. Right. Maybe this year without a preseason, maybe you could sneak a guy like Daryl Johnson in year 2 on to the practice squad. And here's my concern. Like, I like Daryl Johnson. I want to see where this goes. And this is what I hate about the National Football League, is if a guy even shows a glimmer of potential in the preseason, it's very hard not to keep that guy in your 53-man roster. It's very hard to stash them. I don't think the Buffalo Bills expected AJ Epinesa to be on the board when they picked. I think Quentin Jefferson, when we signed Quentin Jefferson, I think that's the person they expected to play the role that AJ Epinesa is now going to play. So now they have 2 of those guys. So now they have just this overload of people. So do we maybe make Quentin Jefferson the full-time left end? Maybe try to play him like a Shaq Lawson and rotate him in and out with Mario Addison? And maybe kick him inside on obvious pass rushing downs to save that spot for Daryl Johnson and cut Trent Murphy? Who knows what we're going to do? But I really think the crux of the issue here with Daryl Johnson and the reason why maybe the depth on our defensive line is maybe too deep is because I really don't think the Buffalo Bills were expecting AJ Epinesa to be there in the second round.
Yeah. And I do think the more that this offseason gets abbreviated, the more likely it is that Trent Murphy is on this team come opening day. And, look, for as much as we bagged on Trent Murphy, he wasn't that bad towards the end of the season. And I think that when you talk about the rotation, you kind of leverage the guy's strengths when and where you can use them. Is Daryl Johnson better than Trent Murphy right now, given the situation that you find yourself in where you're going to have to roll guys out there that you trust on day one? Probably not. You're probably going to keep Trent Murphy, but it's an interesting conversation going on in the comments section because it's pretty split. I mean, you got some people saying, Murphy's as good as gone. Some people saying we need Murphy because AJ isn't proven yet. Daniel's mentioned how Murphy's better than Daryl Johnson. DJ played poorly during the season. So it's a split opinion here.
And here's the issue, because War Code Red 01 says, sounds like a great problem to have, having too many players in defensive line. Here's where the issue lies. Here's where the problem is, War Code Red. What if we cut Trent Murphy, but we ended up by the end of the season really needing that presence of the defensive line, and our defense falters this year because of it, and it hurts our chances to make the playoffs or make a push in the playoffs this year? Or on the flip side, what if we keep Trent Murphy because of the short-term implications, but let Daryl Johnson walk and some team signs him and he becomes a 10-sack-a-year guy? That's where the issue comes. Having so much depth is you got to pick one or the other at some point, and God, you hope you're not wrong, because sometimes you have to think in the short term and it hurts you with the long-term prospect, and sometimes you think about the long term and it hurts you with that short-term prospect.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, I think, about Murphy, right, is I feel like there was so much variable things that happened there during this offseason, right? Like we had talked about, like, would the Bills potentially even go after like a Clowney or an Everson Griffin, pay them like a net $3 or $4 million or more than you're paying Trent Murphy? They had the opportunity to do that months ago when there was like way more time between now and the start of the season, and they didn't do it, right? And so that indicates to me that they're comfortable with Trent Murphy being that guy along the line that could potentially start for them, to open the season. So,
I mean, Buffalo Bills Nation at the end of the day hits on the spot. He said, we about to have a nasty defense. Got a comment here from Elliot, too. Anybody remember Mike Love? I remember. Yeah, I mean, Mike, here's the thing. Like, I was on the Mike Love train. I love Mike Love. Mike Love, but here are two other names to keep an eye out for, because I really like the prospects along. When I say the Buffalo Bills defensive line is stacked, it's not just because of, AJ Epinesa and Quentin Jefferson and Trent Murphy and Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes and Daryl Johnson. Mike Love, a very good prospect in his own right, who's flashed. Jonathan Woodard is a guy I really liked coming out of college. A really good defensive end who was signed late last year and was on the practice squad all year. Brian Cox Jr., who they brought over from Carolina, is another young defensive end with potential, son of former NFLer Brian Cox, who we all, love to hate from his time with the New York Jets. The Bills are stacked. Like, those guys are, like, in my opinion, Love, Cox, Woodard are all borderline number 4, number 5, DNs for those teams that are sort of higher up there on the cap and have to save some money by having, like, maybe a lesser known name player. Those guys can play in National Football League games and not embarrass themselves. Are they anywhere near the upper echelon of our depth chart? Hell no. But, like, if the Buffalo Bills were cash strapped and they had to cut Trent Murphy and they had to let this guy, and they couldn't have signed Quentin Jefferson and they couldn't have signed, Mario Addison, I could easily see a guy like Mike Love or Jonathan Woodard or Brian Cox making the team and contributing in a way that, like, Eddie Yarborough contributed for 2-3 years. That's the type of player they are. Like a fringe NFL roster guy. Like, there are no scrubs on the defensive line. Guys you look at and say they're going to be, like, they're cut and they'll never see an NFL roster again. Those 3 guys are getting cut and they'll end up on a roster next year, someone else's training camp. They're legitimate fringe NFL guys. This defensive line is deep. It is deep.
Yeah, going into last season, going into camp, I had a chance to talk to Bradley Gilbert from Bills Wire, and Mike Love was guy he specifically called out as a guy he liked as an under the radar player. And so he's a guy that didn't really get his chance in the regular season. Obviously, we played pretty decently in preseason. Obviously, we went to the practice squad. So there's still some potential there for Mike Love. So I like that. And there's a lot of comments right now in the comments section talking about like this is a problem that we're going to have as we develop a very good roster top to bottom, is when you come down to making the decision of what guys you're going to keep on your team. It's going to be bittersweet when you're going to have to cut guys that end up on other teams, but at the same time you have to look at that as a positive, right? You have to look at that as like the team building that's going on inside your walls, inside your organization is working. When the guys you're cutting are immediately getting picked up by the other teams, it means you're building the team top to bottom the right way.
Yeah, and I mean, at the same time, too, in a couple of years, when we have to give Deion Dawkins an extension and Matt Milano extension and Tremaine Edmonds and Trey White and Josh Allen, when we have to extend all these guys, they're joking in the comment section about good old Gerard DeBeer, the offensive lineman from the University of Arizona, by the way. We were having a U of A, ASU conversation before the show, but there will be more players like that on the roster as the Bills get better, just because it's going to be a lot of like UDFA's sort of scrap heap talent. Like Gerard DeBeer was cut, and like he kind of sort of washed out of the league. He didn't really stick around anywhere. A lot of these Bills players that get cut this offseason are going to end up on a team's practice squad or training camp next year. And I'm talking into the 60s. Like there are 10, 11, 12 guys who are fringe NFL players who aren't going to make this team. So it's just absolutely crazy. Great question here from Brian Bowers. If we're not top 5 or top 10s in sacks, it's a disappointment. I'm gonna say no, because I don't think Sean McDermott's scheme really schemes for sacks. Sean McDermott just likes to get pressure on the quarterback. He doesn't necessarily need to take him down behind the line of scrimmage. And what that pressure does is that pressure sort of helps your DBs force turnovers, break up plays, gets teams in 3rd and long situations and forces them to punt. I don't think Sean McDermott much cares about the number of sacks he gets. I think he cares more about getting 3 and outs and getting turnovers.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, statistically, I don't really care about sacks. I want to look at the end of the season and see what was our defensive 3rd down percentage. Was it like under 30%, 25 or lower? And what was our turnover total? And what was our turnover margin for that matter? Were we a plus differential in turnovers? So the pressure is the key there. It can lead to, interceptions, can lead to, turnovers. So top 5 or 10 in sacks, not going to be a disappointment for me, because like you said, McDermott's defenses in the past haven't necessarily been high sack outfits. So I wouldn't read too much into that one.
I will agree with this comment.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you could be 3rd and 40 against Patrick Mahomes, and he's got Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman. I think Demarcus Robinson is gone. Like they're just.
This is an interesting philosophical question here from Cody. So what's more important, pass rush or coverage?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to say coverage. And here's why. How many times about 4 or 5 years ago did we absolutely love the pass rush talent that this Buffalo Bills team had? Kyle Williams, Marcel Darius, Mario Williams. I'm blanking on some names here, but there was a very nasty defensive line. Manny Lawson, like there was some
Jerry
guys.
Hughes was there for some of
that. Jerry Hughes. That's the name I was forgetting because he's still a Buffalo Bill. So many guys, and I still to this day remember, because I didn't have as much football knowledge as I do today. I still remember going into that Giants game it was like week 2 or week 3 of the regular season, week 4, and Eli Manning was the quarterback, and it was sort of like the Giants weren't good, and I'm like, the Bills are going to win this game. Like they're going to eat Eli Manning alive. He's not a very mobile quarterback. Defense will control this thing. And Eli Manning just came out in that game. It was like dink, 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 dink. Like got the ball out of his hand in like 2-3 seconds.
Yep.
Andy Dalton was really good at that too. Just like he throws the ball within a second of him getting the snap. It completely renders the pass rush useless. Now, I think pass rush is great because if you have an elite pass rush, it can make some bad DBs look good because you can force turnovers and get away with things. But at the other end of the coin, good coverage can lead to, coverage sacks and make bad defensive linemen average defensive lineman looks good. At the end of the day, I think I'd rather have guys in the secondary that I trust and hope that they can survive maybe some not as good pass rushers as opposed to vice versa.
When I first saw the question, I was kind of like, my mind, it kind of immediately went to pass rush. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of agree with you. I think coverage for me, the pass rush is not going to get there every game, right? The coverage has to be there every game. No matter what happens in any given game, you're going to be faced with probably 20 to 30, 20 to 25 passes at a minimum. We know that Cousins game against Atlanta last year was an anomaly, but like, look, it's an impossible question to answer, but I'm going to say coverage because you're going to have to face those 25 minimum passes a game, and they're going to have to be there. And the pass rush isn't going to be there every game. You're going to go up against teams with good offensive lines. They're going to scheme to rush away. They're going to do the quick passing game like you mentioned. And so, I think for me it's coverage too. Actually, I think that's a good question.
Yeah, Joshua Barrett comments. Rico had the same question and he gave the same answer. So here's the message I want to send to the people in the comment section. Next time somebody says, "Where's Rico?" during a Bills guys broadcast, know that he's right here. He's in our hearts. He's in our minds. He's in our soul.
He's influencing.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's the Buffalo Fanatics influencer. So next time someone wants to say, "Where's Rico?" just know he's right here. He's right here. All right. So, any other questions? We got about 10 minutes left. What are we going to get at here? Any other questions, guys? We want to still go on the defense. I'm trying to think of some things I want to talk about here. But
there's some comments about the defense, but we could go to a kind of a different comment here, which is kind of interesting. Ed Oliver was picked number 9 overall, but was it the right choice? A lot of us wanted DK Metcalf from what we've seen so far. Did we make the right decision? Could we imagine an offense that had DK and Diggs? I think if we had drafted DK, we wouldn't have Stephon Diggs right now. But it's a lot of hypotheticals here. I think Ed Oliver, for where you picked him at number 9, was probably the best value on the board for a position where the Bills probably felt like they weren't ready maybe to go after that number 1 receiver. And you see, like, after Josh Allen had the year he had in 2019, they were then ready to do that. So I think that timing-wise and progression-wise, it probably made sense the order that they did things, going for Oliver and then getting Diggs, a proven guy after the fact, than rather than trying to throw in a rookie DK Metcalf, who going into the pre-draft process, a lot of people said he wasn't a very complete route runner, and that's still to be seen, right? He did a lot of go routes and fly routes for Seattle. That was kind of most of what he did. But
I'm pretty sure there are only 2 or 3 routes in the Seattle route tree.
Yeah, so I actually think the Bills made the right call here.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. I mean, the Bills should have pulled a Tim Murray back in the day. And just not even say anything, just from the table with the guy with the headphones. He should have just stood on the table and yelled at Oliver from across the room. They don't even have to go to the podium. Like, to me, it was no question who you take there. I mean, this guy is going to be an absolute stud for the Buffalo Bills for the next 5 to 10 years. He's going to get at the quarterback. I mean, you saw what he started to do in the second half of last season. That dude absolutely wreaked havoc on quarterbacks from the interior. And the combination of that and Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano with those A-gap blitzes, the addition of Mario Addison, who I think could be utilized in that A-gap blitzing as well, playing maybe a little bit in that Lorenzo Alexander role. The pressure that the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to create up the middle and really make the quarterback uncomfortable with some of the players we have in the secondary, like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White. Maybe Josh Norman, if he can get his act together because he's back and comfortable with Sean McDermott. There are a lot of guys in that secondary who can pick the pocket of a quarterback who's making a dumb decision. And if we can force some pressure from the interior and force some guys outside and get them off their plant foot, they're going to make some bad decisions and make some bad throws. And we got the guys in the secondary to make them pay for that.
Chris, question here from Chris. Do you guys see AJ Klein being phased out on defense and then peppering in Voshon Joseph, kind of like what they did with Milano and Ramon Humber a few years back? Remember how crazy it was driving us, but we knew we were trusting the process when Humber was on the field and McDermott was hesitant to put Milano. Could you see that being the case this year with Voshon and AJ Klein?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good take. I know we had mentioned that and used that in this example, a few times now with the COVID shortened off season, guys like Matt Milano. Who's the other guy we were talking about? AJ Epinesa, Zach Moss, guys we feel like maybe won't make an impact until midseason just because they're going to have to pay their dues in practice. I can easily see that with Voshon Joseph, but I'm starting to soften on that stance a little bit. The reason why I said that was I thought it would be really cool to have 3 sideline-to-sideline linebackers. No offense to A.J. Klein. He ain't no sideline-to-sideline linebacker. Voshon Joseph in college, he could drop back into coverage. He could rush the quarterback. He can go sideline-to-sideline. He's a little bit scrawny. He might struggle a little bit in run support, but he's a very athletic guy. So, it would be nice to have all 3 of those guys out in their field. It's easier to disguise what you're doing. It makes the quarterback question, is he going to drop back? Is he going to blitz me? What's he going to do? Gives the quarterback headaches. But at the end of the day, I was talking to Joe Marino on the Locked On Bills podcast, and he said, based on my scouting of Voshon Joseph, I really think he's weak side linebacker only. He said he doesn't think he has the mental capacity or the football IQ to play strong side linebacker or the play strength to play strong side linebacker. So he really thinks Voshon Joseph is weak side only. So the question then becomes, do you really want to flip Matt Milano over to the other side?
No.
And I really don't think you do.
No.
And at the same time, if Voshon Joseph gets a full off season behind Matt Milano, if Matt Milano does walk in free agency, you've sort of hedged your bets there because now that guy has gotten a full 17-week season worth of reps as the backup at that one singular position. So I'm actually going to go with no. I think if AJ Klein gets phased out, it'll be for nickel, like Saran Neal, Dean Marlowe type of player.
So Andrew's going back to the pass rushers coverage comment. Hey, man, don't forget about my guy Nate Odoms, okay? Nate Odoms was a baller, shorter corner. You watched watch his technique in that Oilers game, the comeback game. He was straight at the receiver, no tilt in his leverage whatsoever. He was squared up with that guy, and he was a good corner, man. I like me some Nate Odoms, but we appreciate the super chat, Andrew. I love it.
Yeah,
love the take.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'm going to say too. Like the example I gave that sticks out in my mind was that Eli Manning game from years and years ago.
This is true, though. None of those guys on the wall. They must
have Well, the thing is like, and again, I'm not an expert of 90s football versus 2010s football. But if anyone in here has that sort of expertise, was that a strategy back in the 90s NFL to get that ball out quick? Because I remember like the seven-step drop was a thing in the Jim Kelly and Dan Marino era. 7-step drops don't exist in the National Football League anymore. It's 3-step drops. It's 5-step drop. It's get the ball out because those mofos are coming at you. Like that's how the National Football League is nowadays. So maybe that plays into it. But again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in 90s football here.
Yeah, Joshua mentions Odoms, Jones, Kelso. Jones and Kelso.
Henry Jones. Henry Jones is the man.
Jones and Kelso were safeties, though. But yeah, I love Henry Jones.
Kelso with that big helmet.
You guys, just a shameless plug here. If you listen to Charlie Gross's podcast, it just came out today. We talked about the best safeties all time for the Bills, and I ranked my top 5. Henry Jones and Mark Kelso both made the list. It's just a quick preview there.
And then Andrew did comment there. That's when the West Coast came out, Joe Montana and Bill Walsh, and that's the quick hitters. So that is sort of the evolution of the quarterback from the 7-step drop to the quick release. So that's a great comment for Andrew. You're right. Bill Walsh did sort of I don't know if he invented, but he definitely perfected the West Coast offense. Have you guys seen on Twitter that Buffalo Bills helmet bar?
Yeah.
Have you seen it, Dave?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Pretty sure that's just a hollowed out version of Mark Kelso's helmet from back in the 1990s.
Oh yeah. They 3D printed his helmet to a bar size.
For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Mark Kelso, go Google Mark Kelso helmet. Mark Kelso, former Bills color commentator, he had some concussion problems in his career in the National Football League. And it was sort of they don't have the technology in the helmets that they do today, sort of like the shock absorbers and things like that. So he literally put like a foam covering over his helmet and then painted the foam covering Bills colors. So it was just like, you think Aaron Rodgers has a big helmet? This thing was like 3 times the size of Aaron Rodgers' helmet. It was huge. So that was a quite amusing helmet from Mark Kelso there.
I want to just answer Daniel's question here really quick. Who are my other 3 safeties? So
George Wilson?
No, I'm sorry, man. My number 1 was George Sames. You got to go back and look at him. He played in the 60s. He won 2 championships with the Bills, AFL championships. He was a 3-time All-Pro, 2-time champ, 5-time Pro Bowler. Kelso was on there. Henry Jones. Jarris Bird was on my list. And Tony Green was my fifth guy on my list.
No Jim Leonard.
No Jim Leonard. Steve Freeman made it as an honorable mention just because he played 130 games.
No Keon Carpenter.
No, I did like me some Co Simpson though.
Well, Pearson Prelo.
Pearson Prelo was a good one.
Rayon Hill.
Coy Wire, safety linebacker. But no, those
Brian
are
Scott.
If you guys
perfected the safety linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys don't know, like a little Bills history here, go look up George Sames. He played during the AFL era, but he's in the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame. He was the man. Go look him up if you don't know him, and you'll really like it. So those are my 5.
What was the thing that Co Simpson said to the cop when he got pulled over for his DUI?
I don't remember.
He said something like he had some really good comment. Like some cop pulled him over for driving drunk, and he was like hammered, and he said something to the cop like, "Do you even know who I am?" I'm like, "I'm an NFL player." And then like 2 weeks later, he was out of the league.
Yes, Brian. Jarris Bird was one of my top 5. Maybe we end on this question here. Is there a position group you guys think the coaching staff will keep more players than usual, like DT, wide receiver, O-line, linebacker? I think it depends on if they do anything to change the roster sizes and the makeup. So typically it's been 53 with a 10-man practice squad with the 1 extra international player exemption. So really that's like 64 guys that you kind of have. So if they increase that to 75 maybe, or they increase the practice squad, I could see them keeping definitely a couple extra wide receivers, maybe 7 or 8, and certainly defensive tackle as a candidate as well. If you think about Harrison Phillips coming back, you got Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson probably will go in at an end, but there's some wiggle room there. Linebacker, I would say no. Offensive line, probably 9 or 10. I don't know that there's one there.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty interesting, right? Because if you look at 3 of those 4 positions, those are 3 of the deepest positions on our team. Defensive tackle, we're 5 deep. Wide receiver, we're like 8 deep at wide receiver. Offensive line, we're 9, 10 deep of guys who have NFL experience. Linebacker, not so much. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills try to skimp out on linebacker again. You got Edmonds, you got Milano, you have Klein, Matakevich, maybe keep Voshon Joseph, and then maybe you let Corey Thompson go, and maybe you only roll with 5 linebackers again. Do you think this year, we're going to roll with 6 this year? Voshon's healthy. Mm-hmm. We'll keep him. We'll keep Thompson, who's been here for 2 years. We'll keep Tyler Matakevich from special teams. Maybe they roll 5 again. At linebacker because they want to keep an extra wide receiver, because they want to keep an extra offensive lineman. I know O-line, the thing that offensive linemen get away with is I think the extra active roster spot goes to an offensive lineman.
Yes.
One of the 2.
Yeah,
so you have to keep 8 active offensive linemen on your game day rosters this year. Like in uniform, you have to have 8 offensive linemen this year. Mm-hmm. So you might have to keep 9 guys, because if one guy's, one or 2 guys gets hurt, you're not going to be able to meet that requirement. So you might have to just keep an extra offensive lineman just for the sake of that at this point.
Yep. Well, let's end the show here with a joke from Elliot, because Elliot's one of the funnier people on here. He's always got something funny to say. He says, "I got stopped fishing in Canada for fishing with 2 poles in the water. I told the guy I was bipolar. He laughed and let me off with a warning." Cody coming in with a super chat right at the end here. "How many extra picks does Brandon Beane make this year from trading players, and what's the best extra draft pick do we pick up?" We lost the 4th rounder in 2021 in the Stephon Diggs trade. So if he can flip a guy, I think before training camp, or maybe after training camp, at the end of training camp, for a 4th rounder, or maybe a 5th if he can't get a 4th, I think he'd be willing to do that. There was a good article today on The Athletic about guys that could potentially get traded before training camp. Robert Foster was a guy you and I both mentioned before.
That article is like a month old, but I retweeted it.
Yeah. I mean,
Joe B. Someone needs to check in on Joe B. He hasn't tweeted in over a month. I'm worried about the man.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's on hiatus or something. But
they usually take July off. Yeah,
Foster was a guy we both said could be a guy, and Spencer Long was another one. Foster, you could. I don't think the Packers are going to give you a 4th for him, but you could get a day
6th, 7th.
Yeah, you could get a day 3 pick. You could maybe get a couple day 3 picks, right? If you trade Foster and maybe Spencer Long or someone like that. But Again, trading's going to be tougher. It's a good point by War Code Red 01. It'll be tougher with COVID. People will be less willing to do it, but we'll see. Elliot says, don't forget we get compensatory picks for Shaq Lawson short of his, maybe, right? Because we also signed.
A lot of money came in too. Yeah, so it's always money coming in, money going out. It's not exactly losing guys. If you bring guys in, you sort of avoid it.
Yeah, because we brought in Addison for some money, and obviously, Norman. So there were some guys we paid some money to. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Back to Cody's comment real quick. One of my hotter takes earlier on in the season was, I think that the Buffalo Bills are about to go into the next phase of team building. We've been doing a lot of accumulating over the past 2-3 years. So now it's time to start making the tougher decisions, letting guys walk, having a more shallow roster going into the future because you have to pay guys more money. And that's where draft picks come into play. Letting one of Milano and Dawkins walk and then collecting that compensatory pick. And then one of the other ways to collect some draft picks, I thought the Bills were in a great position to go crazy at the end of training camp this year. I mean, let's go up and down the roster. We could throw Jake Fromm in there as a guy that maybe you could trade at the end of training camp for something. TJ Yeldon, Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie, Lee Smith, Jason Kroom. I mean, Spencer Long, Evan Bain, Darrell Williams, Trent Murphy. Maybe you could even get something for a Vincent Taylor, Levi Wallace, EJ Gaines, Stephen Hauschka, if you decide to go in a different direction. I'm not saying you can trade all of these guys. I'm not saying that. It's not Madden. You're not going to get 7th-round picks or 6th-round picks for all of these guys. But you might be able to get a nibble on – that's a lot of guys I just named. You might be able to get a nibble on 3 or 4 of them. And,
the Bears may come knocking on your door for Stephen Hauschka.
Yeah, I mean – It sounds crazy. It sounds madness, but I'm being dead serious. Like there's a lot of talent on this roster. There's a lot of players. But here's the thing with this, that all I think went away. I think COVID is going to throw a wrench into all of this. I really I mentioned this before. I wouldn't be surprised if rosters expand. I wouldn't be surprised if half these decisions we have to make, we don't have to make this year. And even if we did, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the National Football League puts a moratorium on trades. Says, guys, you can't trade guys. We can't have guys jumping from team to team to team. We can't have that kind of movement. Right. No trades for you this year, NFL. No trades for you. Roger Goodell will be the trade Nazi. No trades for you. I really wouldn't be surprised.
You want trade? $3. That's what he's going to say. Anyway, so that's a little Seinfeld joke for people who have seen the show. But let's see. Any last questions or comments we want to talk about here before we wrap it up? I think we're pretty good here.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I think that should pretty much do it. I mean, appreciate everyone's comments tonight. Super chats were great. We had a lot of good comments on the sleeper player. We took up almost like 2/3 of the show with that. So that Elliot, thank you. No soup for you. So that was a really fun conversation for us tonight. So really appreciate.
Seems like Cody's got something in the tank here. Does he want the prediction on Washington's new name? This is something I've actually wanted to talk about. I know it's not Bills talk, but it's something I want. Okay, here's my take on the Washington name. 1, Red Wolves is the best uniform. That uniform was filthy. Filthy. Did you see the mock-ups of the Red Wolves?
It looks nice, yeah.
My favorite name is Red Tails, just because I'm a history guy. I really like the history behind it. The Red Tail unit of fighter pilots in World War II. I think that's a really nice about face to go from literally just having a name that's just like an awful connotation of a certain group of people to uplifting a minority group with a name like Red Tails. I'm personally a big fan of Red Tails, but all indications are that Dan Snyder has his mindset set to Washington Warriors. So it's looking like that's probably the direction they're going to go, and they're probably going to utilize that University of Washington W on the helmet.
That's lame, man. That's
Redskins colors.
It sounds like no offense, but it sounds like an XFL or a UA.
Well, first of all, Washington had the best XFL uniforms, in my opinion. The DC Defenders, I love those uniforms. Those are my favorite of the XFL uniforms. But
They
I don't know
be
if you,
Washington Defenders. I mean,
no, DC Defender, like it's got to be
Yeah,
that. What's it called?
alliteration.
Alliteration. There we go. You're the big word man.
I like the Washington cherry trees, but that's not going to happen. So look, I like red tails. Red tails would be my vote.
Yeah.
I agree with you on the history aspect and the about face. So red tails would get my vote.
Well, he goes, some smartass trademarked the top 40 names they could have taken. He's currently extorting them at the moment. That's the only reason why they haven't announced a new name. Yeah. But I think that I think Warriors is one of the ones that wasn't. I think Dan Snyder owns the trademark on Warriors, unless it expired. I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I've read about it, but I haven't read too much into it. I believe at one point Dan Snyder had the trademark to Warriors. He bought it just in case. He had to do an about face, but I think he let it lapse. So maybe that guy bought it. Who knows? But yeah.
Seems like Red Tails is getting a lot of love. I think that's what they should go with. But yeah, I guess time will tell. We'll see what happens. There's other, obviously, issues going on with them right now. So with that,
Washington Wolverines just have Hugh Jackman on the sidelines every week.
Ooh, yes. Maybe Hugh Jackman's picture could be on the side of the helmet.
Or John Gruden's son. What's his name? The really jacked kid.
Oh God, I don't know his name.
It's a dumb name.
Did you see?
It's a really dumb name.
Did you see the Frank Caliendo of John Gruden brushing his teeth?
No.
It's just Frank Caliendo pretending to be John Gruden, like brushing his teeth with an electric toothbrush, and he has just like really funny facial expressions. Just check it out if you have 10 seconds. It's like it's not long, but
someone was saying the other day because after Patrick Mahomes signed the big deal, Frank Caliendo went on YouTube or Instagram or something, and he posted like a little funny video of him as Andy Reid, like doing a dance.
Yeah, he did.
Somebody commented, they're like, it's not fun anymore. Frank Caliendo's not fat. He doesn't look like Andy Reid. He's too skinny.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, so
Deuce Gruden.
Oh,
I knew he had a dumb name. A dumb name.
That's right.
Deuce Gruden. He's short and he's like fat jacked. He's like 5'5", but he's like he's like a ripped 5'5". Like he is a girthy 5'5".
For those
definitely take steroids.
Hey, I'm 5'5". You probably can't tell from the video, but I'm a pretty short guy. But I am not. I'm not fat jacked, so I don't have anything on Deuce Gruden, unfortunately.
I pretty much do this podcast from the V-neck up. So if anyone asks, I'm fat jacked, but really I'm just fat.
That's harsh, man. So you're fat and you shot over 100 today? Oof.
No, dude. So I decided to redo my wardrobe. I decided to redo my wardrobe for the school year. Every year I decide to redo it. And I decided to go out and I just finally decided to give up the shirt and tie game this year and to go the polo route and to just pretty much show up to school. I'm a teacher. Show up to school every day dressed like I'm going to the golf course after. Wear some nice golf slacks, tuck in a polo. It's 120 degrees out.
Yeah.
I'll put the shirt and ties on in November and December. But I didn't want to go out, so I used the Amazon wardrobe or whatever, and I ordered like 8 Under Armour polos. I ordered them size large, and I got them, and they fit kind of nice, like in the front, but the sleeves were like way too long.
Yep.
And I hate long sleeves. I hate them.
Me too.
So then I went and bought. So I returned them all, and I'm currently having the medium shipped to me. And the first medium came in today, and I put the medium on, and it's a real tight squeeze up front. But the arms look good in it. Like the arms look real good.
Let me tell you, on golf shirt brands, the sleeves, the brands that have shorter sleeves but good fit, Nike has a good set length sleeves. Peter Millar, look into that. They have really good shirts, and the sleeves are not too long. So
Under Armour let me down, man.
Yeah, Under Armour and Puma has notoriously long sleeves as well. So
my fiance was like, "You have 2 choices." She's like, "You could do a hell of a lot of cardio, or you could just do a hell of a lot of curls and like some like those forearm workouts, so your arms fit into the large polo." She's like, pick one.
You're who was it that we were saying was Bill's guy's N was someone's mom, right? I don't remember.
Is that my mom? Is that my dad?
Know.
Dad, is that you?
Probably because he's
Dad?
saying Rico is the
No!
best. And they want to get rid of us.
Definitely my dad. Definitely my dad.
We'll leave it at this. We're maybe trying to do some kind of Buffalo Fanatics golf thing. We'll figure this out, Pierre. We got to make it happen. We've been talking about a lot in the Buffalo Fanatics chat. We got to make something happen. Maybe when it's not like 95 degrees out in the middle of summer. But anyway, Cody wants to know what kind of clubs you have.
Well, here's the thing. Like I'm a pretty decent golfer, but I'm not one to like mess around with golf clubs. I inherited my golf clubs. My father was a really big golfer back in the day, but he tore his rotator cuff about 15 years ago. Had a really nice set of like iron shafted TaylorMades, and I've just taken really good care of them. So I have about a 15-year-old set of iron shafted TaylorMades that I rock with. I'm a TaylorMade guy. TaylorMade balls, TaylorMade clubs. That's TaylorMade glove. I rock the TaylorMade. I'm a TaylorMade guy.
So you know Steve's a big golfer when he calls the steel shafts iron shafts. So he's a history buff on his clubs there. So
I actually played around with good old Ben Hogan. Me and him are tight.
Yeah. So Pierre says he still hasn't fitted his clubs. He needs to get on that because it does make a difference, man.
I need to buy a driver that's street legal.
Yeah, you better.
Have I told you the story about my driver?
No, you haven't. Maybe we should save it for for a preview for next show. What driver does Steve Mathis use?
It's not that great of a story. I literally can't afford a real one, so I bought a $40 driving range driver off of Amazon.
Oh,
not PGA Tour certified, but I rip it. I rip it.
Oh my God.
Rip it. It's literally a driving range driver. Rip it.
Yeah, we got some good golf comments going on in the section. So yeah, we want to do like some kind of Buffalo Fanatics golf thing. We got to try to figure out how and when we want to do it, but depending on sort of how we do this, we may open it up to more than just Buffalo Fanatics. We'll see, we'll kind of see what we can do with the COVID situation, or maybe we do something with the fans maybe next year when things are a little bit more looser. But I think it's something that's in the works, and we're going to try to make it happen. So. And yeah, I do agree. Pierre's new profile picture is really, really fire. So nice job on that.
I think I might grow my Pierre beard back. I shaved it. Right before I started getting on video. Like right before I started doing the Periscope videos. Like I shaved it. I went like full no beard.
Yeah.
And then I've just sort of been trimming since. Maybe I'll grow it back out. I kind of look like someone who blows up buildings though with like pipe bombs when I grow my beard out.
God. I don't know. That hair product your hair might be so flammable you could just walk in.
I will straight up. I'll buy a trench coat, grow the hair out, grow the beard out of the works.
God.
All right. Our audience from the top here appears to have cut itself in half. So I think this is just about time to wrap things up for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you absolutely brought it. I mean, we're at the point, Dave, where like, how easy is our job? We just sit here. We just sit here and scroll the comment sections, and these are the guys who should be getting the credit, not us. We just sit here and facilitate. The real conversation goes on in the comment section. Yep. So thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate it. Check out the Buffalo Fanatics Podcasting Network. We will be re-airing this show there tomorrow. Wednesday's the Code of Conduct Pod. Thursday's the NFL Basement. Friday is one of my new favorite podcasts, the Hoof Podcast. Those dudes brought it last week with their conversation about Josh Allen. Make sure you check that out. Bill's overdue. Laugh every time. And then you can catch the replay of our Friday show on Sunday. So Buffalo Fanatics Podcasting Network, place to be. 7 days, 7 podcasts. We got you hooked up. Pierre says, tune in Wednesday for the Hump Day Hotline. Joe Miller, Jay Spence, they always bring it as well. We'll be back Thursday. Rico will be back Friday. Sunday. I mean, seriously, folks. 7 podcasts a week, 5 vidcasts a week. If I'm wrong, someone tell me in the comment section. If I am wrong, someone let me know in the comment section. What platform delivers more Buffalo Bills content on a weekly basis than the Buffalo Fanatics? Can anyone name one? And I'm not trying to be mean. There's great content all over the internet, all over social media. But does anyone bring it harder than Buffalo Fanatics? I don't think they do. I'm proud to be a part of this network because, like, I absolutely love the way every single person grinds day in and day out. I absolutely love that we get to interact with the people in that comment section day in and day out. It's great. It's wonderful. I love it.
The best thing
I'm
for
gonna stop
me,
talking.
yeah, the best thing for me about since we've been on with Buffalo Fanatics, and it's been, I guess, right like now we've crossed over the year mark for you and I,
Mhm.
is that Pierre, Enrico, and Bobby, like they help guide us, but they let us do our thing, and they're
Mhm.
there for us. And we've seen the network grow. We've seen the amount of contributors, the podcast, all the content's been growing,
Mhm.
and honestly, like we have this like one giant chat on Twitter where everyone talks with each other. It's like it's like real family type feeling I get from this team,
Mhm.
and I couldn't be happier to be part of it. It's so great. So
I've been doing some hardcore trolling in that group chat today too.
yeah,
So I can't wait because I've been away from my phone for an hour now. I can't wait to go back into that chat and just witness the destruction which I caused when I go back to that group chat.
oh my god, yeah, you're totally fun. But it's gotten to the level of comfort now where you can feel like confident trolling the group, and everyone will just kind of with you. So
It's mostly Spence, and it's Spence that I can I get under Spence's nerves on a daily basis at this point.
yeah, but yeah, I mean it's been great. So, and of course the regulars that are in here all the time, and for the regulars, tell your friends. Like we seem to be getting a lot more people being comfortable making comments or reading comments
Mhm.
out. So it's really great. So definitely appreciate it. Everyone's been so great so far for us. So
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much. Until next time, go Bills.
go Bills.